in St. Lucia, where there seem to be murders taking place on our streets daily. But thank God we didn't hear of any reports in the last 24 hours. But today, as always, we're going to have different segments of our show. We will start off with the SLP segment, then we're going to have a special guest tonight. And while I have my guest on in the next segment, we will be opening up the lines so that you too can get an opportunity to call in to Like It Is, so that you will have your turn to tell it like it is. And so for tonight, we're going to get down into business right away, touching the issues that are of interest and concern to you, the people of St. Lucia. And I will start with my SLP segment, the segment that deals with secrets, lies, and propaganda, the ways of the St. Lucia Labour Party government. And for today's SLP, we are looking at the St. Lucia Labour Party's panic at the news that Alan Chastanet visited the St. Jude project. Now, I will read to you a letter that emerged mere minutes after they found out that Alan Chastanet visited St. Jude's Hospital, and the desperate attempt that was made to politicize the issue and to try to score cheap political points on the matter. I will go to clip number 1, which is a copy of that letter, and if you can just place it on the screen for me. But I will read that letter for the benefit of those of you who are listening to the radio and are unable to read off the screen for yourself. The press release, which came out on the 5th of July, is titled Unauthorized Visit to St. Jude Hospital by Alan Chastanet, a reckless stunt to undermine progress by a desperate politician. So the St. Lucia Labour Party, SLP, strongly condemns the unauthorized visit made by United Workers' Party leader Alan Chastanet to the St. Jude Hospital reconstruction site today, Saturday, 5th July 2025. Mr. Chastanet, without any formal clearance or coordination with the relevant authorities, entered a secure construction zone in a blatant disregard for safety protocols, institutional processes, and basic professional conduct. This reckless stunt is characteristic of Mr. Chastanet's continued campaign of misinformation and political grandstanding. As has become his pattern, we fully expect that he will now go on record peddling his usual lies and distortions about the state of St. Jude Hospital project, the very same project his government left in disarray after years of mismanagement, wasted public funds, and stalled construction. Let the public not be fooled. Mr. Chastanet's sudden interest in the hospital's progress is not born out of concern for the health and well-being of St. Lucians, but out of desperation for political relevance. It was under his leadership that the hospital became a national embarrassment, a shell of cladding with no plan, no completion timeline, and no proper accountability for the hundreds of millions spent. The St. Lucia Labour Party is confident that this administration will complete the St. Jude Hospital and deliver to the people of the South a fully functional, modern healthcare facility that meets international standards. Since assuming office in 2021, the Labour administration has taken deliberate and responsible action to restart, restructure, and advance the project. Today, construction is progressing steadily and transparently under the guidance of competent professionals. We reassure the people of St. Lucia that despite the political games being played by Mr. Chastanet and his allies, this government will not be deterred from doing what is right. The health and dignity of our citizens remain our top priority. Let it be known, St. Jude Hospital will be completed, not with fanfare and falsehoods, but with hard work, honesty, and accountability. SLP, right? That it was not signed, but it was written by the St. Lucia Labour Party. Now, if we were to take a quick look about this fuss that is being made over nothing, we are claiming that Alan Chastanet visited the site unauthorized. And of course, within minutes, they had this letter out, and they knew already what it is he was going to say, and you know, and all of the statements that would be made and so on. And then they jump ahead, you know, as if to, you know, to deflect what they know would naturally come their way and to talk about embarrassment and talk about, you know, the project itself being of international standard and all of that, while Alan Chastanet only had a shell of cladding with no plan, no completion timeline, and no proper accountability. I would like to challenge the author of this letterhead to tell us, because they did not say in this letter, when is the completion date of the St. Jude Hospital, how much it will cost us all told, and whether in fact we can ever end up with a state-of-the-art, built for purpose St. Jude Hospital from a building that is over 80 years old, that was not in the first place built to be a hospital. And so that is the approach, the nature of the St. Lucia Labour Party, to try to pull wool over people's eye and to fool the population, because like I've always said, that is how they got into office, and that is what they believe will keep them in office. But you can fool some people sometimes. You certainly can't fool all the people all of the time. And for sure, people are seeing through you. And when you talk about transparency and accountability, the only transparency there is in this government is that people are seeing right through all of you. And so they put out this press release giving the impression that Alan Chastanet behaved like a rogue in just invading the premises, not getting permission, so as an unauthorized visitor. But in fact, ladies and gentlemen, the reality, the actual reality, is far from that assertion. In fact, Alan Chastanet got authorization from the contractor who is responsible for and controls the project site. And that contractor is no other than Reno Kajada. And I'm saying to you tonight that the Honorable Alan Chastanet got permission from Mr. Reno Kajada, the site contractor, the project contractor, who controls and is responsible for the site. So, ladies and gentlemen, they say a picture says 1,000 words. I would imagine that a video would probably say 1,000,000. So, let me show you just a short clip dealing with what the St. Lucia Labour Party wrote about in this letter. And you will see for yourself the sharp contrast between what was the actual reality and the bluff that they tried to pull on St. Lucian. Let us look at clip number 2, please. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, you just saw that short video clip, which clearly shows that the workers on site were taking the Honorable Alan Chastanet on a tour of the site, and there, what you saw there, they were about leaving, and there you saw the exchange of handshakes and so on, you know, and what was actually, according to what we saw, a reflection of cordiality and facilitation, contrary to the lie that you heard in this video. In this letter, sorry. The video was in sharp contrast, stark contrast to what was said in the letter. Now, if you were to go by the letter, I'm sure that's not the images you would have expected to see. I want you, ladies and gentlemen, to see, and I want to remind the St. Lucia Labour Party of what an unauthorized visit looks like. Please play for me clip number 3, which will illustrate for the benefit of the SLP and some of our viewers what you can call an attempt at an unauthorized visit.
Despite being questioned several times, the individual identified as an officer declined to explain his presence on the site.
I am willing to work with you, no, but what is your legitimacy here?
You are the ex-police officer asking me these kind of questions.
No, you're telling me you're here?
You are an ex-police officer. You are my commanding officer.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, this is a video of what looks like an unauthorized attempt to get onto a site. And you saw in that clip Richard Frederick, El Guapo, in his gangster style, crime boss splendor, getting on and showing all his aggression and bad manners, a man who is now in our cabinet and we call honorable. That is what you call an attempt to force your way into a site unauthorized. You saw all the aggression, you saw all the violent behavior, and you heard the tone as well. You never saw any such thing in the video that I showed you with Alan Chastanet. So when the SLP come with their lies and their propaganda, see it for what it is. And that is why tonight I took the time to debunk it. Otherwise, some of you who do not know better would have believed it. Because at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, the way the St. Lucia Labour Party operates, it gives you no choice but to associate them with that famous saying by Albert Einstein, which goes like this: whoever is careless with the truth in small matters cannot be trusted with important matters. So if they're going to lie about an insignificant thing like this, where Alan Chastanet visited a project site, which is a national project, which is of a hospital that belongs to us, the citizens of St. Lucia, it is our business anyway. I do not assume that there's anything that should be hidden from the public. There should be nothing there to hide. And they are telling lies about it, going out of their way to try to bluff you, to try to fool you, to try to spread that kind of propaganda. It tells you that this is a government that you cannot trust with important matters. Ladies and gentlemen, the ways of the St. Lucia Labour Party. That was SLP for tonight. I ask you to please stay tuned for the next segment.
You hear lie? That is lie. Lie? You hear lie? Teacher Pussy say if you tell a lie, you're going to hell as soon as you die. Why, sir?
The views of the host of this program is independent of Hot 7 TV, Kiss FM, and Hot FM Communications Limited.
Now you can take Hot FM, Kiss FM, and Hot 7 TV with you wherever you go. Whether you're in St. Lucia or exploring our four corners of the globe. Our record-breaking app has already been downloaded over 500,000 times on Google Play and the Apple App Store. To bring you the best in HD sound, we've relaunched a brand new app. Get it for free in the App Store by simply searching Caribbean Hot FM HD. Listen to us in real time, anywhere, any place, anytime. We've added so many cool new features, like our live in-studio option, where you can see your favorite announcers and DJs at work. So download the app today. It's free. Spread the news. St. Lucia is now in HD around the world on the Hot FM app. Don't miss out. Join the fun and stay connected.
Looking for the best way to advertise? Stop searching. Hot 7 TV gives you more reach, more impact, and more value. Get your business in front of the right audience and watch your sales soar. Don't miss out. Call 452-6040 today and take advantage of our exclusive advertising packages. Hot 7 TV, smart advertising for smart businesses.
The Woodward.
Absolutely huge from the Briton. It's been coming for a long time. If she's broke that magical 7-meter line.
Goes for it. It's beaten the man, square leg. Well, that will do it. 8 scores of 200 or more for Brian Lara.
Usain Bolt storming through, he takes it again, Blake gets the silver.
Play of the day for the Heat. Derek Jones.
Unforgettable moments in sports. Sports classics during the Hot 7 Nightly News.
Now you can take Hot FM, Kiss FM, and Hot 7 TV with you wherever you go. Whether you're in St. Lucia or exploring our four corners of the globe. Our record-breaking app has already been downloaded over 500,000 times on Google Play and the Apple App Store. To bring you the best in HD sound, we've relaunched a brand new app. Get it for free in the App Store by simply searching Caribbean Hot FM HD. Listen to us in real time, anywhere, any place, anytime. We've added so many cool new features, like our live in-studio option, where you can see your favorite announcers and DJs at work. So download the app today. It's free. Spread the news. St. Lucia is now in HD around the world on the Hot FM app. Don't miss out. Join the fun and stay connected.
Looking for the best way to advertise? Stop searching. Hot 7 TV gives you more reach, more impact, and more value. Get your business in front of the right audience and watch your sales soar. Don't miss out. Call 452-6040 today and take advantage of our exclusive advertising packages. Hot 7 TV, smart advertising for smart businesses.
And the woodwork.
Absolutely huge from the Briton. It's been coming for a long time. If she's broke that magical 7 meters. Line.
Goes for it. It's beaten the man, square leg. That will do it. 8 scores of 200 or more for Brian Lara. Usain Bolt storming through, he takes it again, Blake gets the silver. Play of the day for the Heat. Darren Jones.
Unforgettable moments in sports. Sports classics during the Hot 7 Nightly News.
And the woodwork.
Absolutely huge from the Briton. It's been coming for a long time. If she's broke that magical 7 meter line.
Goes for it. It's beaten the man, square leg. That will do it. 8 scores of 200 or more for Brian Lara. Usain Bolt storming through, he takes it again, Blake gets the silver. Play of the day for the Heat. Darren Jones.
Unforgettable moments in sports. Sports classics during the Hot 7 Nightly News.
Now you can take Hot FM, Kiss FM, and Hot 7 TV with you wherever you go. Whether you're in St. Lucia or exploring our four corners of the globe. Our record-breaking app has already been downloaded over 500,000 times on Google Play and the Apple App Store. To bring you the best in HD sound, we've relaunched a brand new app. Get it for free in the App Store by simply searching Caribbean Hot FM HD. Listen to us in real time, anywhere, any place, anytime. We've added so many cool new features, like our live in-studio option, where you can see your favorite announcers and DJs at work. So download the app today. It's free. Spread the news. St. Lucia is now in HD around the world on the Hot FM app. Don't miss out. Join the fun and stay connected.
Feel so insecure. We gotta tell it like it is.
Yeah, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Like It Is, and thanks for staying tuned. Tonight, as I said, we have a special guest in studio whom I'm going to introduce in a moment. But before we do, one of the new candidates for the United Workers' Party has sent me a message here, and that is Elisha Norbert, and he has asked me to send birthday shout out to Miss Alberta Peter of Prale. She is turning 70 years old tomorrow. So on Like It Is here, we want to wish you a very happy birthday tomorrow. And if for some reason I have to go through the community of Prale, I will find where you are, Miss Alberta, to celebrate for a moment with you, to help you with the cake and some of the drinks. So enjoy yourself tomorrow, celebrate your great day. It's a milestone to see 70. I hope you see many more beyond the quota that we normally allocated. So ladies and gentlemen, before I turn to my guest, it would be remiss of me if I do, like our authorities, our government wants us to do, to pretend that everything is nice, everything is fine, and everything is like paradise here in St. Lucia. It is not. And we know what has transpired in the last week and a half. And of course, while K9 police dog 642 Tyson dies under suspiciously mysterious circumstances, and we have some 12 St. Lucians, including a 7-month-old unborn baby, a pregnant mother with a 7-month-old unborn baby being gunned down in the streets of our nation in the space of a week and a half. We have not heard a word from our government, not a word from the authorities. In fact, the commissioner, like he does when there is a success story, come out and have a press conference flanked with all the high-ranking officials. We have not heard anything, which seems to suggest to me that very little value is placed on the lives of St. Lucians, and that this is very disturbing. We cannot pretend that what is happening is not happening, because it is happening, and it's of grave concern to all of us in this country, because we fear for our safety, and we are concerned about our freedom and, of course, the quality of life that we want to enjoy here in this country. So, ladies and gentlemen, to date, not a word, not a word, not a word from our Minister of Crime Prevention. And to date, not a pip, not a peep, not a peep from our Prime Minister and Minister of National Security with all what that is going on. I just want once again to take the opportunity to send out messages of condolences from us here at Like It Is to another of the new endorsed candidates for the United Workers' Party, Rush Clark. Among the 12 or so people who have been killed in St. Lucia of late was one of his cousins, a lady who was 7 months pregnant, and in the process, she lost that 7-month-old baby. So Rush, to you, your family, and your close-knit circle, we like to express our condolences. We know that you have gone through quite a lot at the hands of violent crime in this country, and once again, you are experiencing, the consequences of violent crime. I heard your video, the message that you put out, making an appeal to young men especially to put down the guns and choose peace rather than war. I have to salute you, sir, because given what you are facing personally, because it is a different story when it hits home, given what you are facing personally, it is very easy to become emotional, to become angry, and to lash out. But you spoke like a true leader, like a community leader, and a man who can set the example and inspire other young people to do what is right, to do what is best. I have not heard from the parliamentary representative of Castries, where quite a few of the murders have taken place. I don't expect to hear from him. I don't expect, if he speaks, that he will speak, in the way that you did, with dignity, with honor, okay, and showing leadership and control. I don't expect that. And the reason why it is very difficult for him to speak on any such issue is because when you are compromised on a matter, it takes away your legitimacy and authority to speak on the issue. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I want to introduce because I want to give you as much time as possible to get to know my guest and to give you some time to interact with my guest as well when we open the lines. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, I have here another of the new candidates of the newly endorsed candidates of the United Workers' Party, one of the shining torches of the Flabo Party, Mr. Tommy Descartes, who is the endorsed candidate for the constituency of Castries South. Now, before I engage Mr. Descartes, I want to give you a little background on who he is, so that as you're here watching and listening, you can have an idea going in as to who it is we are dealing with. I will be asking him some questions, and just perhaps I may not ask all the questions you want to ask. You will get the opportunity to ask questions or to interact with him, make comments or suggestions, as the case may be. So tonight, I have here Mr. Tommy Descartes. Tommy Descartes, who is a seasoned development economist over 15 years experience in public policy, specializing in areas such as fiscal policy, social development, and national planning. His professional career began in 2003 at Barclays Bank, where he worked as a night depository teller. He later joined the First National Bank, serving at the Bridge Street branch and contributing to the launch of the Marigo sub-branch. A proud alumnus of the Lady Walker Primary School, formerly known as the Methodist School, and the the St. Mary's College, Tommy holds a bachelor's degree in economics and management from the University of the West Indies, and he furthered his studies in the United Kingdom, earning a Master of Science in Economics and Econometrics. Okay, did I say that correctly?
Yes,
right. Economics and Econometrics,
yes,
from the University of Nottingham as a 2017 Chevening Scholar. His public sector career spans multiple ministries and multilateral engagements with a focus on advancing data-driven and equity-focused policy solutions for national and regional development. In 2010, Tommy joined St. Lucia's Ministry of Finance as an economist in the Research and Policy Unit. There, he monitored critical sectors including agriculture, manufacturing, tourism, energy, monetary policy, and the balance of payments, and contributed significantly to the drafting of the annual Economic and Social Review. In 2016, he transitioned to the Ministry of Equity, Social Justice and Empowerment as Deputy Director of Social Transformation, where he led social research efforts, and his key accomplishments included updating St. Lucia's proxy means test instrument to more objectively identify poor and vulnerable populations eligible for social protection programs. During his tenure, Tommy worked closely with agencies such as UNICEF, the UN Women, the World Bank, and World Food Programme, contributing to various social policy initiatives. Notably, he co-authored a UNICEF-commissioned report on adolescent well-being and equity adolescents' well-being and equity, and supported legislative reforms such as the Child Justice Bill. He also served as St. Lucia's focal point on the OECS Juvenile Justice Reform Project, which focused on diversion and limiting children's interaction with the criminal justice system. In April 2019, Tommy joined the Department of Economic Development as Deputy Chief Economist, and was promoted to Chief Economist in June 2020. During this period, he spearheaded the completion and launch of the St. Lucia's Medium-Term Development Strategy 2021-2026 and led the formulation of the Economic Recovery and Resilience Plan in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. He also worked closely with the World Economic Forum on the St. Lucia's financing roadmap and engaged with bilateral, multilateral partners in mobilizing development finance. He served as the Deputy National Authorizing Officer for the European Union and National Focal Point for the Green Climate Fund. In April 2021, Tommy joined the Caribbean Development Bank, CDB, as a country economist, covering Jamaica, Dominica, and Barbados. And at CDB, he further deepened his understanding of regional economic and social issues, focusing on tourism, the blue economy, and the design of policy-based loans for member states. Tommy considers himself both a regionalist and Comptonian. Let me get that again. He is both a regionalist and a Comptonian. I suspect that has something to do with John Compton. Okay. Development economist. Paying homage to Sir John Compton, I told you, paying homage to Sir John Compton's legacy of economic prudence and social mobility in St. Lucia. He firmly believes that regional integration is not merely desirable, but essential for the long-term viability and prosperity of the Caribbean, 44 million citizens. He emphasizes evidence-based policy making, viewing good governance and anti-corruption as central to unlocking St. Lucia's development potential. Grounded in faith, Tommy adheres to Judeo-Christian values. He served over 12 years as an altar boy at the St. Benedict's Parish Church and the Apostolic Faith Church in Cicero. As a community leader, he served in the capacity of vice president and president of the Cicero Seagulls Youth and Sports Club for approximately 5 years between 2011 and 2016. He helped establish the Cicero Community Football League and managed the Mon Fortune Gladiators basketball team. He also pioneered the Focus Youth Conference, which offered spiritual and motivational support to young people ahead of each school year. Tommy is a former national under-19 cricketer and took part in the Sir Garfield Sobers tournament in Barbados with the likes of Darren Sammy, Esau Gabriel, and Gary Mathre. Tommy is the firstborn of Marcia Noelita Descartes, a single mother whose humility, sacrifice, and commitment to service, shaped by years of work with the Dominican sisters, deeply influenced his worldview and lifelong commitment to uplifting the poor and most vulnerable in our society. Ladies and gentlemen, a mouthful as to who Tommy is. So I gave you a little peek into his educational background, his professional career, and his community activism. So we have an idea who Tommy is, but we have to dig in a little deeper, we have to dig in a little further. Mr. Tommy Descartes, endorsed candidate for Castries South for the United Workers' Party, going to do battle against Ernest Healer in the upcoming general election. A very hearty welcome to Like It Is. We are happy to have you here this evening, and I'm sure our viewers and listeners are looking forward to a very interesting engagement with you tonight.
Thank you very much, Spider, and a good night to you and to your viewing audience, both here in St. Lucia and abroad. It's my first foray into the campaigning, Spider, and I look forward to a very, very insightful and good discussion on Like It Is, and to engage with the audience and to get to know me and to share my views and my concerns of what's happening in Castries South and the country at large. So thank you very much, Spider.
You're very welcome. Now, Tommy, I gave my viewers and listeners a little background of what I dug up about you. But before we go any further, is there anything you want to say about Tommy Descartes, the man that I left out, or that you perhaps would think my viewers and listeners would want to know, or that you would want them to know?
Well, it's the list, but I think you've done a very, very good job in your research. I think you've captured very, very comprehensively who Tommy is. Like you said in your preamble, I'm the son of Marcia Noelita Descartes, the woman who has been the bedrock and that backbone that has shaped and molded me into the man I am today, and I salute her for that. Deeply faith-driven. I have that commitment to Judeo-Christian belief systems, and that shapes my worldview, as you indicated, how I perceive and my life and my commitment to serving people, my community. I have worked extensively in the government, like you said, research and policy unit, overseeing the economy, and then moved into equity. At the time you were the minister then.
Right.
and we
It's a
championed.
pleasure to work with you.
Yes, yes, and you know, I vividly remember just doing some really good work there, Spider.
Yeah.
I still have difficulty calling you Spider, but I still when I see you as
if you call me
minister.
by any other name, my viewers and listeners may not know who you're talking about.
Okay.
You know?
Okay.
So, unlike it is, I'm Spider.
Well, Spider. So, and I remember the Child Justice Bill. You know, this was a really landmark piece of legislation that we enacted. From my understanding, it was there 20 years in the making, and you played a pivotal role in bringing this piece of legislation to fruition, and I think it has made the landscape for children and women and families a lot better. So I salute you for that. I don't think you get much credit for it, and you don't speak too much about it yourself, but I think that was very, very, very transformational on your part, Spider.
Yeah, and I must say, well, I was pushing the whole idea of it and so on, but I must confess, I mean, if I look to my right, I see the person who was really doing the actual work. So, I thank you.
Thank you.
I think St. Lucia, has to be grateful to people like yourself who actually brought it into reality and made it come to fruition.
Sure.
But what I read about you, what I've heard about you, what I said about you, can give us a fairly good idea why you would want to engage in a life of service, because you seem to have that in your background. And so you're no stranger to such a thing. You have community involvement and so on. But there is community service and community service. You have actually entered into the political arena. Why, Tommy? And I'm asking you that question. I want you to understand where I'm coming from. I mean, you didn't tell me that one. The people I spoke to about you didn't tell me that one, but I know that one. You had a very cushy, very comfortable job, well paid by the Caribbean Development Bank. You're working at the CDB.
Yeah.
So really and truly, you're not looking for a job.
Yes.
And you left that. You resigned, and you're here now, offering yourself to the people of Castries South to be their parliamentary representative. Why at this juncture in our political history would Tommy make such a move?
Spider, that's a question that most people ask me. A lot of persons find it very, very, bewildering that at what they would consider at the top of my career as a country economist at the Caribbean Development Bank, a place I've always wanted to work, Spider. It's a phenomenal institution. The first president was Sir Arthur Lewis. So it feels, to walk the corridors that Sir Arthur Lewis actually walked, and has done great and phenomenal work touching the lives of millions of people in the Caribbean. And I always say that I will always be a Caribanker. That's how they refer to us, right? Once a Caribanker. But when the opportunity calls to come back home, Spider, to serve, and I think working at the CDB gave me that regional perspective to see that St. Lucia was and is underperforming. I would say that up until Sir John's era, and that's why I said I'm a Comptonian development economist. I think that St. Lucia has been underperforming substantially up until Sir John's era. So if you look at one time, St. Lucia was what I consider the giant of the OECS. All of the other OECS countries looked to St. Lucia. Dominica, we had we had led in tourism. We had the biggest economy. When Sir John handed St. Lucia to Vaughan Lewis in 1996, we had the biggest economy at 2.1 billion, but we had the lowest debt to GDP in the region at 23%, $500 million, Spider. If that's not an economic miracle, I don't know what is. So I mean, the man has, and beyond that, we've not seen St. Lucia has. I mean, we don't have good ports. We don't have good healthcare. We are struggling to just pave our roads and to keep our roads in a manageable manner. We have the highest crime rate, homicides in the OECS. I think sitting in Barbados, and giving advice to governments was just, I couldn't do it. I really couldn't do it. When I looked in the mirror and I asked myself, Tommy, this opportunity presented itself, and I did not take the plunge. And as a man of faith, I walk by faith, and I trust that God is calling me for such a time as this to come in and to help rescue our country. And I think the 21st century, I must admit, we need strong, bold, pragmatic leadership to help navigate this country into the 21st century. It's the first 3 decades of the 21st century, so Spider has not been easy for the region. In the case of St. Lucia, we had Hurricane Thomas, we had COVID, we had so many issues. And I think now you need very steady, bold, but pragmatic leadership to take us to the next level. So, and that is my view. But secondly, Spider, I think the notion that decent people should not enter our political landscape is something, you know, I mean, someone said to me, you know, either you enter politics dirty or you get dirty in the process and you leave dirty. But I've said to myself that I will enter politics clean and leave clean. And so for me, I believe that when decent people enter politics, they practice decent politics. So the mudslinging and calling you names and the character assassination. And I think that's a strategy to distract from the big issues in our country, the Spider. The big issues of crime, you know, big issues of poverty. Spider, you in that ministry. Right. For the last 30 years, 25% poverty, despite all of the programs that we've implemented, Spider. Well, that means 1 in 4 St. Lucians are considered poor. And I'm waiting bated breath to see the next survey of living conditions that the World Bank is currently doing. I am thinking that there should be an increase because of the impact of COVID and so on. But when you have decent persons entering politics, they practice decent politics, and it's about ideas. It's a contestation of ideas, and the best ideas would prevail. And let the constituents, let the voters decide on the best ideas, and then the best ideas eventually wins. And once you implement them well, it results in a prosperous and a progressive society, and the virtuous cycle continues, Spider. Yes. So that notion that you should refrain from it. You know, even people look at you sometimes and almost as if, but you're a leper now, you know. I remember you made that, you know, why is this guy getting into politics? But I believe that politicians are the ones who make the big policy decisions. I mean, a budget of $2.1 billion was recently passed. $2.1 billion is a lot of money in our context. And how a government manages the affairs of your country will impact you and future generations. Right. So for me, that is the, and obviously, importantly, Castries South. I think Castries South has been, among 2 or 3 other constituencies, experienced tremendous neglect. And I would say the other constituencies is Castries East and Beaufort South. And we know what's synonymous with these. I think the loyalty of Castries South to the Labour Party has not paid off. We have not seen any significant transformational development in that constituency beyond what I call the decade of transformation under Desmond Bradford. That 1987 to 1996, thereabout. Virtually everything that defines Castries South was during that period. Some will challenge me on that, and I say, but come with the evidence, right? But so I think Castries South needs another, and that was under another period of transformation. And I think I'm coming there now to give that sort of leadership, that transformational, bold, people-centered, transformational leadership to the community.
Before we go further, I want to take a moment to commend you, because you know, as you said, you were not deterred by the notion of politics being dirty and every politician has to be a crook or a dirty person and so on. I believe, you know, if anything, you come in, you don't have to allow yourself to become a nasty politician or to be dirty. Instead, influence those are dirty to be doing better. Yes. The more good politicians we have, the better our politics will be, and the more pressure there will be on those who are not up to the mark to get out of the area. Sure. And so I commend you on that. And I mean, I know a lot of St. Lucians are looking forward. There are a number of you guys who are young, and I hope you don't mind me saying so, because compared to me, you all are young, you know what I'm saying? So, and you all have brought a lot to the table. Yeah. I mean, even at your, what I consider to be tender ages, you all have some serious experience, some serious background, and you know, and that you all are coming to the table to offer a lot that can, you know, redound to the benefit of our country and our people. And so I commend you for that. But you, first of all, before I go any further, I heard you mention that you are Comptonian developmental economist.
Yes.
And you chose the United Workers' Party as the vehicle. When you got into the political arena recently, you chose the United Workers' Party. You could have chosen another party. There are other parties. You could have been independent, what have you.
Yeah.
I'm curious, although you've given us an idea, but why the United Workers' Party?
Well, Spider, I mean, it's like I said, I'm a Comptonian development economist, and when I started as the chief economist, I did my sort of historical analysis on the history of the economic development of St. Lucia. And I had to admit that the data is very glaring. 1997 was a defining moment in the economic history of our country. I saw all the indicators started to go in the wrong direction. I mean, St. Lucia, like I said, was the envy of the OECS. It was the giant of the OECS. And from the ports, that which now is highly contested. There's a lot of debate around the ports. So John built the ports, and he built the road networks, the bypasses that we see. I mean, all of us grew up and we see I was told that you had to drive into Mikod with containers. I mean, you know the impact on that on productivity, the HES development, and the impact on electricity and how the entire the Grosley. Pigeon Island, Pigeon Point. I mean, the gentleman dredged this thing, and apparently there was a lot of mosquitoes in the area. I heard that Grosley was just a bit of fishing. The land was not.
I can tell you about it.
You know, I heard that you had to take cow dung and burn it and so on for the mosquitoes. So I did a bit of history on the country. The institutions, your NIC, your mortgage finance, Suffolk Lewis Community Care, great. I mean, and for me, Sir John also studied around the same time with Errol Barrow and Lee Kuan Yew at LSE. And I realized that he was exposed to sort of the Fabian socialism, the more incremental approach to development. And they were the more Marxist-Lenin guys who were on the other side, you know, the CLR James and that. But I think that defined how he approached. He was very, very fiscally prudent. One can add that he perhaps didn't do more in terms of education and that sort of thing. But he was focused on the economy. And one of the things I found that was fascinating about Sir John's policy was that when he tackled the plantocracy, the banana plantations and so on, Sir John could have handed it back into the hands of another big company, but he democratized it. So the guy who was actually working on the farm instantly became an owner. He became the owner of the production of his own, you know, and so therefore owners of capital. And what we saw was a huge jump in the yield. And I think that is what prompted the green goal that we've touted about, you know, and build this economy. And that was one of the biggest wealth transforming policies that we have not seen anything like this yet. And jokingly, I may be wrong about this, but I don't know that beyond Sir John, any new road, a new frontier has been opened in our country. You walk the Millennium Highway, which is perhaps one of the latest development and that was Sir John's idea. The question is a man who left such a tremendous legacy for us. I mean, to carry on, I think, and that's why I consider myself to be a Comptonian development economist. Obviously, and he was a man before his time. He was a man before his time, well respected, statesmanly, and the United Workers' Party, and I will say that people may 60 years. I was told it was formed Easter 60 years ago. That was a Judeo-Christian. That has a bit of symbolism for me, right? I believe this United Workers' Party is an instrument for good. It has transformed the income mobility. I mean, my grandmother had 17 kids, Spider, and in a matter of a couple of years, I could sit at the Caribbean Development Bank. That's because of the sort of economy he built, and that gave a lot of St. Lucians the ability to the social mobility that we've enjoyed. And the UWP as a party is very, very driven on the economy. They believe in growing that economy. As an economist, I have a bias towards that. I also understand that for me, if you read the founding documents of the party, they talk about the dignity of a job. And for me, I've always felt that the best social program that you could have is a sustainable, decent job. And we have always been focused on growing the economy, and we believe once we need to plug people into the economy that they can own their homes, they can build their lives, sustain their, and that is the kind of party I would want to be associated with, and hence why I have supported the United West Party.
Two things I want to say to you, Tommy. I'm very impressed because, you know, I just said earlier, I talk about you young people, you know, so very often do not have regard for history.
Yes, yes.
But I listen to you here, you're certainly, you know, done your research, you're familiar and conversant with the history of St. Lucia and by extension the United Workers' Party, and of course that seemed to have played a large role in your choosing the United Workers' Party. You also, you know, I mean, when I read your bio, I read your educational background, economics and so on. I also went further and then only to find out that you are very much into social work, you know, and you have a social conscience and so on. I think that mix is what I feel has been sorely lacking many times with our leaders, with our planners, with you know, they separate one from the other and cannot marry the two. Now, I had the good fortune of working with you. And I was thinking to myself, boy, they sound an economist to me. Them fellas don't understand social programs. And I was very, very impressed, I must say, with the ideas you had for social development and how you use your background in economics to, you know, pave the way and come with policies that would serve the poor. Now, I mean, you talk about the ports and you talk about all of those things, and I know you grew up in Castries South. One of the hot topics today in St. Lucia is the development of the Castries port that was handed out to GPH. And your constituency has been directly affected, perhaps more so than any other, given the fact that at Banansby, GPH is in the process now with SLASPA of what I call evicting people to facilitate their development. I think you knew that I will not allow you to comment like it is and not have you to comment on what is transpiring in Banansby, and for you to give me your own take, your own views, and even before you do so, know that I will ask you, what would you do differently?
Yes. You know, Spider, when I was putting together my plans for Castries South, and how I would want to represent the people of Castries South, I had some core principles that that's maybe 2 years ago, that I put down. And I mean, it's what I call the collective development ideology of how I would pursue development in Castries South. And one of it is the principle of doing no harm. So, in the bio, your research about me, I led at the CDB on the tourism and the blue economy. As a matter of fact, I was in Jamaica doing a presentation on the Caribbean Coastal Conference. I understand that St. Lucia, while it's a small island, it's a large ocean state. We have 15 times the waters that we have, the marine assets that we have access to. It's 15 times our terrestrial space. So I understand that is tremendous untapped potential there. But I also understand that, and at my training at the Caribbean Development Bank, that development should have safeguards. It should not displace or harm anyone. So I am fully on board for any type of development that is going to upgrade our ports. We need to remain competitive as a country, Spider. But development that displaces people who were informal settlers in the first place, Spider, you hear stories of guys who tell you that they were orphans. A 13, the guy said he's there, 49 years now. He was an orphan, maybe what we would consider wharf rats and that sort of thing and so on, and he learned to fish there. You hear the stories of a guy, several of them, 50 days they lost at sea, and they've contributed to our economy. When you compile your GDP, your fisheries is under agriculture, you have crops and so on. Fisheries, Banan is a fish landing site. The Department of Fisheries collects information there. So clearly they're contributing to our food security. They're contributing to the tourism sector. My issue is how I'm hearing that there was an expert that came and said to them that this is how you should remove persons. If that is what the expert recommended, Spider, I think we need our monies back, Spider. Because no expert as worth their salt would advise SLASPA to do what they're doing to the people down there. So it's literally...
And I'll go further to say any leader worth their salt would not take that advice.
Yes. And so we're seeing they're being displaced. The compensation packages. My issue is that if you walk around, we have an unplanned settlement problem in Castries South. Right. As a matter of fact, I occasionally walk on Saturday mornings, and you are seeing houses are just popping up all over the place, you understand? So there is a culture and a development that, no development should actually reinforce that. This government had an opportunity to say, I'm going to show that I genuinely care. I would find lands, and I would ensure that they are resettled properly. But importantly, we have a history of resettling people in our country. Yeah. So we did it with Conway, we did it with the millet people when there's Roseau. Right. And there are agencies within the government who've done that, housing, economic development. We could have drawn on the expertise there. We didn't have to pay our expert to come and tell us that. We could have drawn on the expertise there to do that. But the way they've treated them. See, they hand them a contract, they tell them read it, and they tell them, don't tell anybody, you know, what's in there. So clearly, it's a divide and conquer sort of thing. Yeah. And while people have challenged me and say, I made the statement that they have been forcibly displaced, maybe they're not bulldozing them. Yeah. But I think a more sinister approach of dangling a carrot before them and say, I'm giving you $15,000 now, break it down. This is psychological violence from Spider.
I agree. And
psychological
the other
violence.
thing that bothered me is that, let's face it, some of those people are not adequately equipped to represent themselves. No. Did you provide them with the wherewithal so that they could get good representation?
No. I mean, you know, the contract says that you could seek legal advice, right. And when you pen your signature, it's on the understanding that you've sought legal advice, or if not, you have chosen to do so. I mean, this is a state abusing its people.
Some of those people, legal advice is out of their hand. You know,
yes, this is a state, literally, and then you juxtapose that with the government saying that if you're on lands there for 30 years, right. I mean, how do you reconcile this? This is irreconcilable. This government clearly has placed, and GPH's loss was traded on the London Stock Exchange, 191 million pounds. This is a huge company. Mm-hmm. And you're now doing this to your people. I think what we would do differently, Spider, I personally believe strongly
I'm very interested in that, yes.
that we have to re-engage GPH and say GPH. I'm hearing that GPH did give the government to relocate persons. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure, I don't have concrete details on that. Mm-hmm. So when we win the election, we are going to engage GPH. We want to get all the information about this. Mm-hmm. And if they have not done so, we are going to ensure that they provide resources to adequately settle these individuals. Mm-hmm. But importantly, you must do a socio-economic impact assessment of how this project will impact, and that's the community. Mm-hmm. So for me, we need to pass legislation, and that should be part of our legislative mandate, to ensure that no development going forward treats people this way. So you must have at least a resettlement action plan done, you have an economic social impact assessment done, and people are properly compensated. If you read the contract, it talks about displacement equity, and for my viewers, you could go and look at what that term displacement equity is, but what's happening in Banan is not displacement equity. I call it displacement into further poverty.
You see, that's what I was talking about when I referred to you as someone with an economic brain and a social conscience.
Yeah.
So, that combination is key, and that is what will ensure that the less fortunate are catered for within the resources of the state. Now, I mean, naturally, I had to touch on this as part of your constituency, but, there are other national issues, and by virtue of your background, and you'll probably be well placed to make a comment on some of those things. And I don't think you anticipated that you'd come in, and I want to ask you about the CIP program, Citizen Investment Program. Do you care to share your views with my listeners and viewers on that program? So, with all that we have heard and all what's happening.
Man, so for me, my first reaction to anything around CIP is what I think was a lifeline to us, an economic lifeline to us, has become a noose around the necks of our country. Right. For me, fundamentally, I take a very philosophical viewpoint on the CIPs, Spider. I believe that this relationship between the state and the individual, where the state bestows certain rights and privileges on you, should not be treated, trifling. You understand? We should. This is serious. And you as a citizen, how you respond. You have to pay your taxes. You have to be a law-abiding citizen. You have to respect property of other person. And so anything that does damage to that, a decision to monetize it and valorize this thing called your citizenship. And the best indicator of how it's monetized is your diplomatic relations that it gives you, right? And that is reflected through a passport. Right. When I was studying in Nottingham, I traveled to Europe, to France and so on. And I had a Nigerian friend, a very good friend of mine, and he looked at me in amazement. He had to get a visa for every single one of these countries. Then I realized, what? This piece of thing I have in front of me is worth something, right? And then I started to appreciate the value of my passport. Anybody who does any damage to my passport, and our passport, Spider, this is tantamount to treason, in my honest opinion. Yeah. And for me, I've always felt that the CIP sector by itself, global sector, it lends itself to bad actors. And so you must have robust systems in place to ensure that you do not compromise your credibility. Your reputational damage that could come from that is far-reaching. Yeah. So, and then when you look at the intake that comes to your coffers, St. Lucia is the worst performing in terms of revenue intake in terms of our coffers. Yeah. St. Kitts, albeit they've been there a long time, they've been really the leader in this thing, close to $4 billion in revenue. Yeah. In the case of Dominica, 2-point-something billion. Even Grenada, who came together along with St. Lucia, is outperforming St. Lucia. The question is why? And maybe it's because the way that the current administration has structured the program, a strong bias towards the real estate side of things. There are a lot of questions around that. From my understanding, I worked on Dominica. It's almost like you have two consolidated funds. One sitting someplace in Dubai, one here, and they would build a road, they would build a hospital, and then all of a sudden, they just call you and, hey, here's the keys. And where's the accountability? And that perhaps this hospital, the proceeds that were used to build this hospital could have built 5 hospitals. So it leaves a lot of room, Spider, for very, very corrupt practices, if you know. And so the CIP, personally, I think, the question is residency program versus, we know there's this whole geopolitical tension between China and the US. I think at this point in the OECS, there could easily be 300 to 400 Chinese owning passports and are residents of the OECS. Now, if you know, the US has always had this Monroe Doctrine that no other superpower should be within the Western Hemisphere. I wonder to what extent that we've had China has the residents and Chinese and so on in there. What are the implications for that? And could we be collateral damage between China and the US? So there are a lot of implications, far-reaching implications, Spider. But for me, all of that and what have we gained is the big question. Right. In Dominica is building the airports. They've done so many other things. St. Kitts brought down its debt, substantially. St. Kitts' debt was 100 and something. They have brought it down. The IMF says, the IMF in Article 4, 2024, says they need more transparency with this. I was part of the National Economic Fund, where the government put a structured governance way to approve CIP projects, to make sure that whatever the funding you use for CIP transforms and it's transformational and it benefits. One of the first things the SLP administration did when they got in was to amend the legislation to allow them to make that decision. The governance framework was weakened. Yeah. And so therefore, elections are on approaching. CIP could be a slush fund for them to do whatever they want. So that is my view on CIP. As to where we go with this, the party needs to really sit down and really think about this, Spider. I don't believe that we should, from a fiscal standpoint, that the CIP should be what driving our fiscal management. It's a revenue windfall. You should treat it as this, but focus on building your economy and growing your tax base, not depending on CIP, which can stop at any given time.
So for now, you should just merely see CIP as supplementary.
It's just supplementary. I don't, you know, and that's my view around it. You know.
Okay, very interesting. You, of course, I keep repeating that you're an economist. You were, in fact, chief economist in St. Lucia not too long ago.
Yes.
Before going to the Caribbean Development Bank. Your tenure as chief economist has come under scrutiny by the St. Lucia Labour Party. I've heard your opponent make comments about it, and they were suggesting that you were the main economic advisor to the United Workers' Party government. I mean, we like to say United Workers' Party government, the SLP government, I mean, the different administrations.
Yes, yeah.
That is during the time of COVID-19 pandemic. What is your response to those claims that are being made and the criticisms that are being leveled at you?
Yeah. So firstly, Smite, I think, I mean, when you are going to come up with this campaign of misinformation, at least you should try to do your research, right? So if you look at what has been played out there, it says I've been there through the full tenure of the United Workers' Party from 2016 to 2021, which is factually untrue. Actually,
I remember working with you in
2016. And then I went off to study at Nottingham. So I only joined in April of 2019. And I left. I did 2 years essentially, and I left in April of 2021. But I must say, it was really a tremendous opportunity for me to have served my country during what was a very, very difficult time. There was a lot of learning for me, particularly, I mean, as an economist, but tremendous pressure. And during that tenure, while I was at the chief economist, and there are two chief economists within the government. So within the Ministry of Finance, there's a chief economist that deals specifically on fiscal policy, and there's a chief economist in economic planning, which position I held, that focuses on national development planning. So what did I do there? I had no sway on fiscal policy at the time. All I focused on was the capital expenditure side of things, donor engagement, engaging with the World Bank, CDB, and ensuring that we implemented our capital expenditure, but also medium-term development planning strategy. When I came in, I inherited the MTDS, which we call it. It was ready in train, and we completed it and launched it a couple of months before the pandemic. While I was there, we worked very closely with the Green Climate Fund to get financing for climate adaptation, climate mitigation. So and then when COVID struck, we were part of a committee where we built out this, what we call the Economic Recovery and Resilience Plan. The government really worked really hard during that time, you know, and I mean, I just wanted to bring out that point, you know. During the pandemic, there were a number of policies that the government would have put on. And one of the things that really signaled to me that the Labour Party is not a caring government as they try to persuade people. I remember the government had put together a committee, a multi-stakeholder committee, to sort of figure out how to tackle this thing called COVID. And they reached out to the civil society, it was a bipartisan. And I remember the Labour Party attended one of these meetings, and subsequent to that, they wrote a formal letter saying that they could not continue. And I thought that was an opportunity to put politics aside and to put country first. Right. And that signaled to me. But what they did, they went and did marches and that sort of thing. Now, I've always held the view that while the march, I wouldn't call the march a super spreader spider. I don't have the evidence to suggest that. But what it did, it signaled to St. Lucians that you could let your guard down. Right. And then so you find people, you know, we had people who were having confrontations with police officers when we tried to enforce. And for me, it's...
And of course, those who broke the regulations and so on, they were exonerated after the SLP came into office.
Yeah, yep.
I mean, but let's not forget too, I mean, you talk about you did not have the statistics or the research to back it. Well, I'll tell you something. There was enough evidence for me to conclude that they contributed to the spread of COVID-19.
Yeah.
The UWP presided over the pandemic for a little while. We had about 80 deaths. deaths
Yeah.
of St. Lucians. When they came in a short time, it went to 400, over 400. And so that tells me that, you know, we had done something wrong.
Yeah.
The
And
government was doing something wrong.
And one of the things I feel that we should have at least a monument, a spider, to our healthcare workers who on the front line, and to those who perished during the pandemic. I'm in politics today. There's a young lady, Lael Jeremy, a staunch United Workers Party. Yes, I've been into service, but I've never been thinking about it and she called me and got me involved in, and so on, started to make calls. And while I was in Barbados, we were conversing, and she died. And that was very heart-wrenching for me. I couldn't come home to her funeral, and I believe that we need to ensure that future generations understand there was a COVID pandemic in our country, and to honor the healthcare workers who put their lives on the line. Right. And even some of the policies we exempted, exemptions were removed for vehicles and so on, for police officers, frontline workers. The government electricity assistance programs, we had over 32 initiatives that we piloted during that time, Spider. So for me, I was really happy to have served my country during a difficult time like this.
I mean, I remember as Minister of Social Transformation, Minister of Equity, Social Justice and so on, to have gotten an increase in my budget during that time. That was remarkable.
We expanded the social protection, both horizontal in terms of more persons, but vertical in terms of the amounts, disability grants. And even then, I think the question about St. Lucia's economy tanking, and every other economy tanked. The IMF, everybody was saying. And the thing about it, St. Lucia is one of the most tourist-dependent countries, and that's part of the structure of our economy. And at the time, the leader of the opposition said, he didn't fully understand the extent of the tourism sector. But
despite the fact that he was former Minister of Tourism.
Sure.
Yeah, but you see, I wanted to ask you about Ministry of Equity, not because I was hoping you'd give me a pat on the back, but I know that you served in that ministry, you did a wonderful job, and I know even when you were out of the ministry, we were fortunate to have somebody like you.
A friend
in your other place, you were a good friend of ours, and I think you served well, you did a wonderful job, and you inadvertently elaborated on it a little, so I'm happy for that. Before I go to my next question, I just want to ask, we talk about all the frontline workers, people, some of whom perished, and those who worked or braved the risk, of life, and to come out and to serve the country and so on. I think we owe them a debt of gratitude, eternal debt of gratitude. But as you can well imagine, when things like that happen, whether it goes good or bad, the leaders take the brunt of the criticism and the barrage of blows and so on. And I must tell you, I developed renewed and additional regard and respect for Alan Chastanet, the way as a leader he presided over that pandemic. I think we were the envy of many other countries, and he was a real leader in that regard. But talking about that, he is now your leader.
Yes.
I want you to comment on Alan Chastanet, the leader.
Certainly, I think when my first COVID provided me the opportunity to work closely with Alan in the first place, and I saw a very bold, compassionate. A lot of what is portrayed about Alan Chastanet, I would say it's really a vilification, and it's a political strategy by the Labour Party. We've seen it with Vaughan Lewis, we saw it with Morella, we saw it with Stevenson King. It's a clear strategy that you assassinate, the character assassinate, and you vilify him and that sort of thing. But the man that I saw was a very knowledgeable, for one. He was the one who said we needed to coexist with the pandemic. Lives and livelihoods. And I vividly remember him saying, while he was at Air Jamaica, he understood that the international travel sector, the global travel industry, could shut down. I said, how could that possibly be? And it did. And he was, the leader in terms of, there was no playbook to respond to this. But he took his in-depth understanding of the tourism sector, the economy. He made some bold steps. And I will say a lot of the recovery, yes, St. Lucia economy tanked about 26%. But it was one of the fastest recovering. I have some some statistics there, Spider. Let me just quickly go through it in terms of recovery. And that's from the central bank's website. Yeah. So yes, 24.4% contraction in 2020. But in 2021, it went up by 11.6%. Right. And in 2022 by 20.4%. If you look at Antigua, Dominica, Grenada, none have. So there was a big debate about the type of recovery that we'll experience. Mm-hmm. Some would say a V-shaped recovery, a U-shaped recovery, L-shaped recovery, whatever. Mm-hmm. In St. Lucia's case, we saw a V-shaped recovery. That means, and it speaks testimony that the tourism sector in St. Lucia is very, very resilient. It can rebound quite quickly, mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But also the policies that were placed, that there was a position to, Alan Chastanet understood that there would have been pent-up demand in the U.S. He also understood that some of the policies that Biden was implementing was giving cash to people. So there was precautionary savings. People were not, but people stuck in a house for 2 years want to come home, and he positions St. Lucia to get some of that.
You mentioned pent-up demand.
Yeah.
For the benefit of my listeners, like people being cooped up in
yes,
their homes.
Yes, cooped up,
yeah.
And the government in the U.S. was right. providing cash transfers and support to persons. Persons were not spending much, but right. persons wanted, and the first country that was open and that was clear, they had marketed it to this world. And so that is what Alan Chastanet did, being one who worked in the sector and understood that you had to position St. Lucia to capture that market share that's available while other countries are scrambling. Yeah. And I think that contributed to a large extent to that sort of recovery that we've experienced. I mean, now it is sort of flatline. I mean, when I looked at the IMF Article 4 report, over the medium term, IMF is saying that the GDP is going to flatline about 1.5% over the next. So once we've recovered, we are going back to this very anemical, low growth rate that has characterized our country. And that's why we need bold, ambitious leadership to raise the quality of GDP, they raise it both qualitatively and quantitatively as well.
You know, while we're talking on the economy right now, we discuss a lot of things that are tied to economics.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for us, ordinary lay people,
mm-hmm.
cost of living.
Pause.
Okay, cost of living is it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we saw some attempts recently, that the government, or currently the government, engaging in some attempts finally to try to control the cost of living.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that there was a call from the United Workers' Party from very early when there was that inflation taking
mm-hmm.
place worldwide,
mm-hmm.
and of course we were feeling the brunt of it because we import almost everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so we said we can't control it to an extent by
mm-hmm.
our own policies
yes.
here in St. Lucia.
Yep.
The Prime Minister actually said it was important and that there was nothing he could do. It's interesting, very interesting, that in the fourth year, he finally discovered that there's something that can be done. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that elections are approaching, so they're coming to do all what they should have been doing for the last 4 years. But in light of what they have done, I have not seen the benefits of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I will first admit in that regard I'm a lay person.
Okay.
So I'm picking your economic brain
mm-hmm.
to comment on the current attempts by the government to lower cost of living.
So Spider, I think the question I have is, why now? Why after 4 years?
Well, I know why.
When the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance repeatedly said, I have no policy space. I have no policy tools within my toolkit to deal with this. It is primarily imported inflation. So all of a sudden, there's a eureka moment. And that's it. What it says is that the Labour Party gets creative only when it's about politics. They all of a sudden. So what I suspect, Spider, and I will go into this.
So you're saying to me, if they really cared about our plight,
yes,
they could have.
They could have, and
years ago.
Years ago.
Yeah.
So what I suspect, Spider, is that they've done their polls, and the political analysts are telling them that on this ballot box, cost of living was going to be a deciding factor, and so therefore they are coming now hastily, believing that solutions will fall for their gimmick.
Yeah.
You know, one of the interesting things, I mean, I've always heard the Prime Minister, the Honorable Prime Minister, when he was in opposition, if you read Hansard or you listen to him, one of the words, the phrases he used constantly was smoke screens and flashing mirrors. All of a sudden, I think that has fall out of his lexicon. He don't use it because I believe he's not just talking smoking mirrors. He's practicing. He's smoking mirrors and flashing
smoke screen
and flash. Yeah. So for me, it is. I heard a member in the house who spoke about an article I wrote and about the inflation. So currently, they're saying that St. Lucia is experiencing deflation. That means prices are good. So my question is, why did you allow prices to peak? I mean, for the last 4 years, inflation is ravaging the average household. I mean, it's not something I like to deal with, the whole issue of period poverty and sanitary napkins. But that's an admission by the government that they were not doing enough. And households were feeling the brunt. The incomes that people have are they can't make ends meet. So inflation gets to this point, and then you decide to introduce disinflationary. It's not about disinflation at this point. It's not about easing the cost of living. It's about politics.
As a matter of fact, Tommy, I want to remind St. Lucians that rather than implement policies that would have brought down the cost of living, reduced the inflation, they implemented a tax policy. They put on us the 2.5%, which was on services and goods and all of that, and even increased the price of food.
I just pulled up the Economic and Social Review in 2024. The government made $38.8 million in the health and security levy. That is a tax I don't believe that the government. So the government has literally took $49 million out of the economy. But you see, the fundamental issue of the Labour Party is that they believe in taxing you up front and come behind you and distribute goodies to you as if they're God Almighty, manna from heaven, and that's all. So in public policy...
Let me simplify that to you now. You're talking economics, I'm talking layman terms. Let me just simplify exactly what you said. They took my bread.
Yes, from your pocket.
From 25 cents, and they made it 45 cents.
Yes.
Now, for $1, I could have bought 4 loaves.
Yes.
Now, I can only get 2.
Yes.
And they watch me now, and they say to me, half a loaf is better than no bread.
Yes.
So in other words, I'm only getting half a loaf for the money I used to get a whole loaf for. And they tell me that's good because half a loaf is better than no bread. Well, you know what, Tommy? I want you, the United Workers' Party, your colleagues, to understand that you met me with my loaf.
Yes.
Now I'm looking for 2 loaves.
Yes.
Not half a loaf.
But Spider, what I would have never thought in my wildest dream that a party whose slogan is bread, freedom and justice would be the party that would increase the price of bread in our country. Exactly. If someone had said this to me, I would never believe that, Spider. So by imposing a 2.5 levy for health and security, by the way, none of our health systems are still in shambles. The security citizen security we have murders all over the place. Our young men are killing each other. I haven't seen. And I want people to understand that the government collected tax revenues in 2014 of $1.4 billion. One of the areas that the government could have implemented some level of easement to persons was on the service charge. Import. The government applies 6% on the value of the goods. Last year, $117 million. A caring government could have said, you know what, and I think Alan Chastanet would have alluded to that. We could have done something. Reduce this from 6% to perhaps 4%. And you could have looked at the pre-COVID revenue intake from this and keep it on the fuel pricing thing. They tackle me on it. You understand? The price of gas. On the price of gas, I mean, I did some analysis around this, and that data is available on the OECS website. And I need to, the whole being on the hustings, having to canvas. I don't have the time to sit down but between 2023 and now, we saw the ECCB tracks that data, right? And we saw 3 fuel pricing practices. One, we saw Antigua that kept prices very low and fixed. We saw Dominica, Grenada, St. Kitts, who allow the market pass-through to work. So they allow the price to fluctuate and to reflect the movements in the international prices. But St. Lucia kept it high and fixed. And the question is why? And it's because it's because they were gouging. They were what I said, that this pricing mechanism became not a pass-through mechanism, it became a revenue maximizing mechanism. That's what it became, Spider. So I have done some simulations. You could get the data, and I will present it to the St. Lucian public, that if the landed cost, which in terms of what you need to, your fuel pricing is made up of your landed costs. They have the service charge, the excise tax, and then you have the dealer's margin and the retailer's margin. The government could have at least shared the reduction in the landed costs. It could have done a 50-50, it could have done 75. And there are scenarios that if the government had at least taken a policy of sharing the reduction, that the prices could have been as low in some instances as $13, $14.46, $14. And and I got chastised in Parliament. I didn't know Tommy Descartes was on the other paper in Parliament. I will present the data. I will present that data, and I'll ask them to refute it. What I'm saying, they could have lowered the prices, and therefore the government literally took monies out of the pockets of people. But then the Prime Minister is saying, "Oh, I pumped $70 million into the economy." If you net off all of these things, that's why I'm wondering what economy he's talking about. He says an economy that is about to take off. Take off to where? Spider. I will be articulating that a lot more clarity to the St. Lucian public, that the government has not been a caring government. And I said the clear indication of a caring government is that you share. The government had an opportunity to share the reduced prices. And I'm not saying the government should pass on all of the savings or the reduction, because you have a country to run. Right. But at least don't come and say that you have no policy space. It's imported inflation. And the data clearly says it. Yeah. So the government has failed on managing the cost of living crisis. It's failed on the crime crisis. And now there's a widespread thing about corruption. So Spider, this government, if in the US, if the chairman of the Federal Reserve had responded to inflation now, you would have been fired. Yeah. You would have been fired for response. You need to act now when people needed it most. Not now because it's politically convenient.
I ask you to be a little patient, Tommy. They will be fired. Come election, they will be fired. But Tommy, I will interrupt you here, because my viewers and listeners will not forgive me.
Yes.
I know some of them are itching to engage you.
Sure.
I think we want to do the juncture where I can't go any further without opening up the lines.
Yes.
I would like to remind our viewers and listeners, especially those of you who are listening, because the viewers can see the numbers on the screen, I believe. But our telephone number, our landline is 450-0777. Once again, 450-0777. And our WhatsApp number is 284-3499. I would like to invite you now to call in for you to have your turn to tell it like it is. As you know the rules, you have to be courteous to my guests. And, the rule number 2, tell it like it is. I think we will immediately have a caller, Tommy. I know they were waiting.
Yep.
Good evening, caller. Welcome to Like It Is. Please go ahead and make your contribution. Tell it like it is. Hello? Hello? I keep my caller waiting too long. Hello?
Hello?
Yes, hello. Good evening.
When Philip Pierre was in opposition. When Philip Pierre was in opposition, he made the statement that Alan Chastanet is the only leader who believes that tourism can rebound.
Yes, Tommy alluded to that, yes. I remember that statement very clearly.
Right?
Yeah.
Philip Pierre was also the previous Minister of Tourism.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Connor.
And today, he comes to say that he did not know, as the previous Minister of Tourism, that tourism played such a vital role in the St. Lucian economy.
Yeah. Okay, caller. Thanks for giving us that reminder. We do remember that comment, yeah. Is that it, caller? Okay. Yeah. All right. Thanks for calling in. Your first caller for this evening. Well, Tommy, when you really look at it, a government with no creativity, no in innovative ideas and so on, what they resort to is just taxing their people to the hilt, and at the end of the day, they make all kinds of excuses. And you know, the approach that the Labour Party has is to keep you dependent on them.
You know, I will also say that the Labour Party has a history, even when how they implement the VAT and the timing of the VAT. I personally believe that it was implemented at the wrong time, and just after the global financial crisis. Go ahead.
You have a caller? Yeah, I'll have to interrupt you, Tommy. Good evening, caller. Welcome to Like It Is. Please go ahead and make your contribution. Tell it like it is.
Good evening, Brother Spider I'm on Tooth.
Good evening, sir.
Yes, this is the Golden Dragon. I'll be contesting the Castries South seat against Hille. Well, I don't call him Hille, I call him Helle.
Okay, Castries South.
Against
Castries South, yes.
And I'll be contesting against the gentleman by you, the financial expert.
Right.
And are you there, Spider?
Yeah.
Yes, so I'll be contesting the Castries South seat. And as you know, I formed a third party called the Progressive, the People's Progressive Movement, and we'll use the color purple, and we'll use the same symbol I used in '97 when I ran for the first time as an independent. I used the Scout handshake, and the Scout handshake is the left hand.
I see you're cleverly using my program to launch your party. Because I mean, I don't have a problem with that. This is a place, you know, where we present people with the new alternatives, the new options that exist. Where you'll have to come on the show if you wish to do so. But my advice for you, caller, you talking about Castries South. I think it would perhaps be more beneficial to the people of Castries South if you join with Tommy. You know, and I'm giving you full support. And, you know, get rid of Ernest Hiller and the St. Lucia Labour Party once and for all, and bring good governance to Castries South and to St. Lucians by extension. Yeah.
You know, I just wanted to, again, look at the track record of the United West Party. For me, the biggest deflationary or disinflation strategy was the reduction of VAT from 15 to 12.5%. People tend to forget that. And that was we didn't have all of this inflation that we experience in there now. And the United West Party took the bold step to reduce it. So again, one can only imagine what. Go ahead, caller.
Yeah. Caller, good evening. Welcome to Like It Is. Go ahead and make your contribution. The line is bad.
Yeah, I'm not.
Caller, we're not hearing you clearly. Could you go ahead and repeat what you said, please? Hello?
Hello? Yes.
Yes, go ahead, caller.
Since Mr. Descartes is an economist, I would like to ask him what is his opinion on his leader, Alan Chastanet, saying to move away from CARICOM. I would like to hear the answer.
His leader saying what?
Move away from CARICOM.
Move away from CARICOM?
Yes.
Did his leader say that? You heard his leader say that? Caller, you're misled. And I have told you, my listeners, to Like It Is, do not listen to everything you heard from the Labour Party. They are misleading you, they are bluffing you. Let's not allow them to continue to do that. Alan Chastanet never said that. Yeah. So there's no response for Tommy to give on that. I'm telling you that was never said by Alan Chastanet. Yeah. Yes, do you have another caller? Good evening, caller. Welcome to Like It Is. Please go ahead and make your contribution. Tell it like it is. Hello?
Hello, good evening.
Yes, good evening. Go ahead, please.
Yes, Mr. Tommy, good evening to you, Mr. Spider.
Good evening, sir.
Hi, good evening.
Yes, actually, welcome on board, Mr. Tommy.
Thank you, sir.
But I would like to know, because I was raised in Banan from the age of 8 years old. So that is a place I know Banan in out.
Okay.
By the sea, Monlatok, and around. What I would like to know is because I was raised in Fulasho as well, in the center of Fulasho. What I would like to know is what's the plan from the cemetery to Fulasho, George Cooper Road, move up to the top of the hospital, going down into the Latok area, which is by the old military road. I am not too sure if you know the old military road, sir.
Go ahead, sir.
Pardon me?
Go ahead.
Yeah,
go ahead.
go ahead, please. Let's not take too much time. Let's make your point quickly so that we can get other callers.
What's that?
The old military road.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, and we're talking about the top of Mount Latop, all around this area. These people
Yes.
actually, there's a lot those people in the area need of. Where
Yes, yes.
the rep is actually reaching out to them.
Okay.
But not everything that could be done by the rep, because the finance in the country is very low, which we're all aware of. But what plan
You're contradicting them now, you know.
will you come out with for the people of Fulasho?
So,
You know, because
yes.
the people of Fulasho
Sure.
All right, caller, let him answer your question.
waiting for some support for many years.
Okay, let's not take any more time. You were quite long in your question. Let him answer your question.
So, Spider, I didn't leave my cushy job to come and play around the fringes of the social order. I came to deal with the serious issues, the structural issues in these communities. So, I looked at the data, Spider, and embarrassingly, when I looked at, well, I mean, I'm a bit ashamed to even see the average income in some of these communities. Some place has $600 a household. How do people live on that? The average income in Castries South is $1,600. I'm coming with a bold, ambitious plan to raise household income in this country. So I'm looking at incomes, but also infrastructure, housing conditions. No rep has been bold enough to say we need to deal with the quality of housing in Castries South. And land tenure, by the way, Spider. Yeah. Spider, we have a situation where we know that lands in Banan, prime lands, were given at, I mean, I'm using the word given, but was sold for $2.5 million. Yeah. Below, substantially below the market value. Right. And then the average person in Castries South is landless. They do not own the lands. So there will be a comprehensive program to regularize people and give them a piece of St. Lucia. Because when one invests in land or in a home, that's the biggest investment the average person can make. And you know the spill off to that, right. Their children's education. Yeah. So for sure, caller, focusing on incomes, raising the quality of incomes in this constituency. Infrastructure, white Fuasho don't even have, we have a lot of single mothers out there. There's not a daycare center right there. A lot of, I mean, I've met ladies who have 6 kids, 3 kids, and one of the things about getting women to go into the labor market and work is where are they going to put their kids? In the case of Cicero, we had Nikai Polio, a 7-year-old boy who met his untimely demise by drowning. There was where the after-school programs to protect our vulnerable. It's not there.
Yeah. So, thank you a lot for answering that question. I hope that satisfies the caller. Because, caller, we're moving away from handout politics. We're going into sustainable transformational politics. Yeah, we have another caller on the line. Good evening, caller. Welcome to Like It Is. Please go ahead and make your contribution. We lost the call. Okay. I was saying, we've become used to the handouts. Now, it's nice if you have a gift for me, Tommy, but
of course.
I can't be depending on you as a man with my pride and my dignity to be giving me a handout. I have to come hat in hand every time begging and so on. But if you give me an opportunity to get some training, get a proper job so I can, as a man, earn a living and cater for my family.
Yes.
That is a far better not for just me, but for the community in our country. Yes, good evening, caller. Welcome to Like It Is. Please go ahead and make your contribution.
Good evening to you, Mr. Spider, and also to Mr. Tommy Descartes.
Good evening,
yes, good evening, sir.
And Mr. Descartes, in terms of your candidacy, what I want to say to you tonight is, my joy come the next election is to see Ernest Healy being on the losing end.
You're going to continue electing Healy?
People had the Philwin guy lot. That's what I want to see.
Okay. Well, thank you, caller. This is a democracy.
I think he said he wanted to see Ernest on the losing end. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Is that what you said, caller? I think that's what he said. He wanted to see Ernest on the losing end.
Well, either way, I was just about to say it's a democracy, and
Yes.
you have a right. I asked you to tell it like it is, and if that was what you said, well then. But if it is Tommy you're going to support, then I mean you're supporting progress. You invested in the future. I can tell you that because I worked with this gentleman, and I know that he will bring his experience, his educational training and background to bear for the benefit of the people of Castries South and, by extension, St. Lucia.
And compassion, leading
Yes,
with compassion.
That's right. Yes, we have a caller. Good evening, caller. Welcome to Like It Is. Go ahead and make your contribution, please. Tell it like it is.
Good evening, Spider. I only hope I don't come as a second-time caller, because I wanted to just make another point, and I got cut.
You dropped off. Okay. Go ahead and make your contribution. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
so what I wanted to say, I saw a news article on choice, and the news article read, Richard speaks for Chastanet on the visit of the Nigerian president. So I was asking myself whether Richard Frederick is a spokesperson for Alan Chastanet, where he is the one who has to speak for Chastanet based on the wording that we saw on the clip. And I'm saying there's so many questions that reporters could ask Richard. Simple question like whether Richard Frederick possessed a personal visa or whether he's only using his diplomatic visa where the Prime Minister has to write for him. And some people will come and say, oh, il pas besoin ça. But when it was on the other foot, leading by J.D. Jean-Pierre, they were the ones making all the noise. We need to know whether Jacques Norville, that was Richard Attaché, whether his visa was revoked along with so many police officers, and whether the next election will lay the script of some ministers. That's what those reporters need to be asking.
Okay.
Stop playing political biasness and giving those guys time just to spew a whole heap of things that make no sense. Thank you.
Okay. All right, caller. Some of those questions will have to be answered by the government, but we won't hold our breath. We know they don't account. They do not, feel they have to, account to us, the people who place them where they are. But of course, the day will come. The time of reckoning is near. So you will have your say in the ballot box. Good evening. Do we have any caller online? Yes, we do. Good evening. Welcome to Like It Is. Go ahead and make your contribution, please, caller. Try to be brief, but go ahead and make your contribution. Tell it like it is. Hello?
Hello. I just want to ask Mr. Descartes two questions, basically. One, we know that he was out of state, working out of state, but what contribution has he made in his community before politics?
Okay, all right, that's one. If you just ask both questions and I'll let him answer,
Okay, and I'll just ask him that one tonight. I'll ask you another time.
Okay, all right. Mr. Descartes.
Well, that's fine. I think you have done your research.
With it, but you probably wasn't on at the time.
Extensively.
Yeah, and if the caller wants to hear it, because he probably didn't when I said it, but you can go ahead.
I did a lot of work at the grassroots level, president and vice president of the Cicero Seagulls Youth and Sports Club, a club, by the way, that is going to be 60 years this year, April 1, and I think we need to make a big splash about it. I think, and during that time, I was part of the one of the persons who conceptualized the football league there, which has transformed and in a very, very, very critical way, where Cicero actually made it to the Premier League. And that we saw sports as a vehicle for fighting crime and empowering our young people. I have been serving in my community at the St. Benedict's Church as an altar boy for 12 years in the Catholic Church there. I also was the first manager of the Mount Fortune Gladiators basketball team, a team that is still plays in the basketball. So I have served at the grassroots level, served at the national level, and I'm coming now to serve my people with compassion, with integrity, and transformational leadership is what I'm offering them. Not the token, not the transactional politics that has come to describe Castries South, the leadership there, but one that is going to be genuine, authentic, and one that is going to focus on transforming this great constituency. Spider, I mean, we need to look at the assets of that constituency, right? I mean, we need to look at what I call discovering the DNA. In Grosile has something about Grosile, you understand? You go to lab,
we all know that.
Jean Grosile,
That's right.
But Castries South, is the healthcare hub of our country. All of the major healthcare facilities, EU, Victoria, the energy sector, Castries South powers the nation. Lucilec is there, all the oil from Buckeye, Rubis. It has tremendous tourism assets. It's, a lot of the food and bar services, but historic sites. We have several cemeteries, military cemeteries. We have on the Mon, yeah. the cannons, the 5 apostles, the 4 or 5 apostles. We have a lot of assets that we could leverage and to tap into the tourism sector. And so, I mean, it's a fabulous constituency. When I walk, there's a lot of musical talent in there. Ricky T, even Tikaro, Lady Spice. Great talent. And so this is the talent I want to draw on and to unleash the talent and the potential of Castries South.
Right. I noticed you're avoiding saying, but I said it already. You're a former under-19 cricketer.
Yeah.
And in the era of Gary Matherin,
yes,
and Darren Sammy,
yes,
I suspect what you did, instead of going all the way with them to West Indies, you went the academic route.
But let me tell you, Spider, and Julian Alfredo, great sportswoman,
Yes.
So, caller on the line.
Yeah, we have a caller on the line. Sorry to keep you waiting, caller, but when it's so interesting, please go ahead and make your contribution. Try to make it short, but go ahead nonetheless and tell it like it is.
Hello, good night.
Good night.
Tommy Descartes, Mr. Spider.
Yes, good night.
I must say that this course has been very interesting. I know the family of Mr. Descartes from the Lapmouth area in Monaco, and these people are very disciplined and hardworking people. So I'm very impressed with the gentleman.
Thank you.
The first question I would like to ask is that earlier in the show, he mentioned that when John Compton left the government and handed over to Vaughan Lewis, that there were, correct me if I'm wrong, the debt of the country was about $500 million in debt. But he didn't tell us how much we had in reserve, because I know Compton to be a gentleman who always believed in having savings in terms of the reserve of the country.
Yeah.
Now, one of the discussions I would like Mr. Descartes to have with the citizens of the country is, since he's an economist and he has experience in that, is to give us some kind of detail about the governance of the country from when Compton left it from in 1996-97 to the present. And correct me if I'm wrong, I understand now that the debt of the country stands at $5.7 billion.
Yeah,
now,
you're right.
This is not a good sign for a country. I don't know how much we have in reserve. So I want to ask, in his discussions going forward, whether he can tell for us, using the estimate of expenditure and revenue from 1997 to the present, and to detail for us and let us know which government is responsible for the majority of the debt we are in today. My reason for saying that...
I hate to cut you short, but we are running out of time, so could you just wrap up, please?
Well, I just want him to detail to us in the little time we have.
Yeah, so
in his opinion, and probably can come on after and let us know which government is responsible for the debt crisis that we are in. Thank you very much.
Well, quickly, we have so once immediately after the Sir John handed over from 1997 onwards, what we saw was the SLP went on a spending binge and a lot of its social infrastructure. And we could speak more in detail about this. I would perhaps try to present some details on it, my view on the debt, and we could have a national discussion around that, Spider, to look at the debt and how the debt has evolved and which government are responsible for a lot of the debt. But debt in itself is not bad, right, Spider? Right. It's what you borrow for and whether it can repay the debt. So that I would love to have a discussion on that, caller, and but
you see,
time constraints.
And I will certainly bring you back, Tommy.
Yes.
And of course, as the campaign unfolds, you'll have enough opportunity to satisfy my listeners with those answers. Tommy, we have come to the end of the show. I will give you, unfortunately, 1 minute just to wrap up.
Thank you so much, Spider. It was certainly a delight to be on here. My first foray in terms of discussions at that level. I really wanted to speak directly to the constituents of Castries South and say to them that, Tommy, I'm coming to you with clean hands and a pure heart. And I'm coming with the intention to transform your lives. I'm not coming to give you gimmicks and all of the fluff and the bluff. I want to sit with you, understand your concerns, and to help you fulfill your God-given potential. And I believe that once we come together, we can do that. Over the next couple of weeks, I'll be having town hall meetings, cottage meetings, knocking on doors, knocking and walking every corridor, Spider. Some people see me walking, I do my little hikes on Saturday, say, you promise to come? I will be knocking on every single door and to articulate a vision of what Castries South can be when we come together. And so I look forward to engaging you. I think it's going to be a wonderful time, Spider, meeting my people, touching, pressing the flesh, and look forward to giving them quality representation over the next couple of years, Spider.
Yeah, I must say that the likes of Tommy Descartes is very refreshing on the political landscape. I welcome the likes of yourself.
Thank you.
The others, newcomers. Yes. We have some 12 newcomers in the United Workers' Party. Tommy, for being such a great guest who impressed me tonight, I'm going to throw a little something in for you. I'm going to give you a free ad.
All right.
I want to remind and invite everyone to the Castries South Constituency Branch Community Night. You can join them for an unforgettable evening of fun, fine dining, and live entertainment. It is on July the 26th at 7 p.m. at the Cicero Secondary School. Early bird tickets, $80. Regular tickets, $100. I suspect I'll buy my ticket tomorrow. Save that $20. So that, ladies and gentlemen, you can, support the cause because, as it is, we're looking to put new leadership, transformational leadership that can inspire and make a difference in Castries South. I thank you, and we look forward to having you on Like It Is once again.
The pleasure was mine, Spider.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for joining us once again tonight, and to say to you that you can join us tomorrow for press briefing from 10 o'clock in the morning on live stream. You can join me also on Thursday morning from 9 o'clock on Rev Up for Meet the Opposition. And of course, on Sunday, we go to Swaziland, where we're going to have a Flambeau Sunday Live for your benefit, where we bring you the information, we shine the light on the truth, and we discuss the issues that are of interest and concern to you. Thank you, have a good night, and we look forward to you staying tuned. Thank you very much.
The opinions expressed on this TV program by the hosts, guests, and callers are solely their opinions and responsibility. They do not necessarily represent the views and opinions of Hot 7 TV or its affiliates.
Hot 7 TV is the rising